The red dust swirled around Lieutenant Commander Hyun-woo Park's boots as he stepped off the landing craft. Kepler 442b stretched out before him like a dream made real. Two suns hung in the purple sky, casting long shadows across rolling hills, covered in silver grass. The air tasted sweet and clean through his helmet filters. "Beautiful planet," said Dr. So-Young Kim as she joined him on the rocky ground. Her scanner beeped constantly as it recorded everything around them. "The atmosphere is perfect for humans. Temperature is just right. This place could be our new home." Hyun-woo nodded but kept his eyes on the horizon. Something felt wrong. The planet was too quiet, too empty. No birds flew in the sky. No animals moved through the grass. Just silence. Captain Do-Hyun Lee called out from behind them. "Team, stay close. We follow standard first contact rules. No one goes anywhere alone." He checked his weapon and looked around carefully. 20 years of military service had taught him to trust his instincts. And right now, his instincts told him to be ready for trouble. The team moved forward across the silver grassland. Their mission was simple: survey the northern continent, look for signs of intelligent life, make contact if possible. But so far they had found nothing. No cities, no roads, no signals, just empty land under two bright suns. Hae-won Choi walked beside the communication equipment that floated on anti-gravity platforms. She was the team's expert at talking to aliens. For 5 years, she had studied every known alien language. She knew how to say hello in 40 different ways, but none of those languages might work here. "Commander," called out Sergeant Taeho from the front of the group, "you need to see this." Hyun-woo hurried forward. The team stood at the top of a small hill. Below them lay a wide valley filled with the strangest sight any of them had ever seen. Hundreds of tall figures stood scattered across the valley floor. They looked like giant crystals shaped like people. Each one was nearly 4 meters tall. They sparkled in the sunlight like living diamonds. "What are they?" whispered So-Young. Her scanner was going crazy with readings. "I don't know," Hyun-woo said quietly, "but they're beautiful." The crystal beings stood perfectly still. Some had their arms at their sides. Others had their hands raised as if reaching for something. A few seemed to be looking up at the sky. But none of them moved, not even a little bit. Do-hyun set up a defensive position on the hilltop. "Hae-won, can you try talking to them?" Hae-won activated her communication equipment. She started with basic mathematical signals. Then she tried music. Then light patterns. But the crystal beings gave no response. They just stood there like beautiful statues. "They might be sleeping," So-Young suggested. "Or in some kind of deep meditation. My scanners show they have energy flowing through them. They're definitely alive." Hyun-woo pulled out his binoculars and studied the nearest crystal being. It was amazing to look at. The creature's body was made of clear crystal, with a soft blue glow inside. Its face was smooth and peaceful. Its pose reminded him of ancient Earth statues of people in prayer. "Sir," said Jin-woo, the team's geologist, "I'm reading mineral deposits around their bases. These beings have been standing here for a very long time, maybe thousands of years." The team spent the rest of the day watching the crystal beings. They tried everything they could think of to get a response. Loud sounds, bright lights, even walking right up to them. But the beings never moved. They seemed to be waiting for something, or watching something. But what? As the twin suns began to set, the crystal beings started to glow brighter. The light inside them pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. It was the most beautiful thing Hyun-woo had ever seen. "We should call them something," said So-Young. "I suggest sentinels. They look like they're standing guard over this valley." "Sentinels. It is," agreed Hyun-woo. He made notes in his report log. Day 1 of contact with the sentinels of Kepler 442b. Beings appear to be in dormant state. No hostile actions observed. Further study needed. Do-hyun wanted to return to the landing craft before dark, but Hyun-woo couldn't stop looking at the sentinels through his binoculars. There was something about them that felt important, something he couldn't quite understand. "Commander," Do-hyun said gently, "we should go." Hyun-woo lowered his binoculars. "You're right, but we'll come back tomorrow, and every day after that until we figure out what they are." The team packed up their equipment and headed back to the landing craft. Behind them, the sentinels continued their endless vigil. Their crystal bodies glowed softly in the gathering darkness like beacons calling across space and time. That night, Hyun-woo couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the sentinels. In all his years exploring new worlds, he had never seen anything like them. Most aliens were either very different from humans or surprisingly similar, but the sentinels were something else entirely. They felt familiar and strange at the same time. He wondered what they were thinking about as they stood there. Were they dreaming? Were they remembering something from long ago? Or were they waiting for something to happen? Something important that only they knew about? The next morning, Hyun-woo was the first one awake. He made coffee and watched the twin suns rise over the alien landscape. In a few hours, the colony ship would arrive. 50,000 people looking for a new home. They would build cities and farms. They would raise children under these purple skies. But first, they had to understand the sentinels. These mysterious beings had been here long before humans arrived. They deserved respect. And maybe, if they were lucky, they might even become friends. Hyun-woo picked up his binoculars and looked toward the valley where the sentinels stood waiting. Whatever secrets they held, he would find them. It was his job as an explorer. It was his duty as a human being. The creature just stood there, unmoving. But through his binoculars, Hyun-woo could see that this was only the beginning of a much bigger story. 3 months had passed since first contact with the sentinels. The massive colony ship New Seoul now hung in orbit around Kepler 442b like a silver moon. Every day, transport shuttles carried hundreds of colonists down to the planet's surface. The sound of construction filled the air as humanity built its new home. Chief Administrator Jin I-yu stood on the observation deck of the administrative building in New Busan City. Through the tall windows, she could see the growing settlement spread out across the southern plains. Housing blocks rose from the red soil. Solar panels caught the light of the twin suns. Children played in newly planted parks while their parents worked to build a better future. "The population count is now 50,000, reported her assistant, Young Sik. "All housing units are complete. The farming districts are producing good crops. People are happy here." Jin-ae smiled. "Good. But what about the northern continent? Any changes with our crystal neighbors?" Young Sik checked his datapad. "The sentinels remain unchanged. They still don't respond to any contact attempts. Commander Park continues his daily observations." Hyun-woo had been promoted to Colonial Defense Chief after the colony ship arrived. His new job was to keep everyone safe, but most of his time was spent studying the sentinels. Every morning, he took a hover car to Observation Post 7, a small building on the hill overlooking Sentinel Valley. Today was no different. Hyun-woo sat in his observation chair with his binoculars pressed to his eyes. Below him, the crystal beings stood in their eternal poses. He had been watching them for 93 days now. He knew each one by sight. The tall one with raised arms, the smaller one looking toward the mountains, the group of 5 standing close together like a family. "Still nothing," he said into his radio. "No movement, no changes. They're exactly the same as yesterday." Dr. So Young Kim's voice came through the radio from her laboratory in the city. "I'm uploading my latest research report now. The energy readings are fascinating. Each sentinel produces a constant electromagnetic field. The patterns are very complex." Hyun-woo lowered his binoculars and rubbed his tired eyes. His wife, Mi-young, had been worried about him. She said he was spending too much time thinking about the crystal beings. Maybe she was right. but something about the sentinels kept pulling him back day after day. "Hyun-woo," came Mi-young's voice through his personal communicator. "Don't forget dinner tonight. Your sister is calling from Earth. She wants to hear about our new world." "I'll be there," he promised, but his eyes were already back on the sentinels. In the research center, So-young worked with her team to understand the mystery of the crystal beings. Her partner, Dr. Woo-jin Lim, had arrived on the second wave of colonists. He was an expert in alien biology and had studied strange life forms on 12 different worlds. "Look at these scans," Woo-jin said, pointing to his computer screen. "The crystalline structure is unlike anything in our databases. It's not quite mineral and not quite organic. It's something in between." So, Young nodded. "And the electromagnetic patterns are getting stronger. Whatever they're doing more of it. The signals are becoming more complex every week." "Could they be trying to communicate with us?" asked her research assistant, Bo Ram. "Maybe," So Young said. "But if so, it's unlike any communication method we've ever seen. The patterns don't repeat in ways that suggest language. They're more like music, or mathematics, or both." Meanwhile, geologist Taemin Kang was making his own discoveries. His deep-core drilling samples showed that the sentinels had been in their positions for at least 10,000 years. The mineral deposits around their bases told a story of countless seasons of rain and wind and sun. "They've been here since, before human civilization on Earth," he told his team. "These beings were standing in this valley when our ancestors were still living in caves." The communications specialist, Hae-won Choi, had set up a permanent listening post near the sentinels. Her equipment recorded every electromagnetic signal the crystal beings produced. Her computers analyzed the data looking for patterns. So far, she had found rhythms and cycles, but nothing that looked like words or messages. "It's like listening to a symphony played very slowly," she explained to Hyun-woo during one of his visits. "There are themes and variations. But if it's music, it's meant for ears very different from ours." Life in New Busan City had settled into comfortable routines. People went to work in the morning. Children attended school in newly built classrooms. Families gathered for dinner and talked about their day. The sentinels had become part of the background of daily life. Some colonists even considered them good luck charms. "They're like guardians watching over us," said Mrs. Yoon-hee, who ran the colony's main bakery. "I feel safer knowing they're out there." Others were less comfortable with the silent watchers. "They give me the creeps," complained Mr. Dong-soo, a construction foreman. "Just standing there staring at nothing. What are they waiting for?" But Hyun-woo was becoming obsessed with that very question. What were the sentinels waiting for? Every day he studied them through his binoculars. Every day they stood unchanged. But he was starting to notice small things. The way the light reflected, differently off their crystal faces at different times of day. The way their inner glow seemed to pulse in rhythm with something he couldn't identify. One evening, as the twin suns set behind the mountains, Hyun-woo saw something new. The sentinel closest to his observation post turned its head just a few degrees. It was such a small movement that he almost missed it. But there was no doubt. The crystal being had moved. Hyun-woo grabbed his radio. "This is Colonial Defense. I need Dr. Kim and the research team at Observation Post 7 immediately. We have movement in Sentinel Valley." By the time the research team arrived, the Sentinel had returned to its original position. The other team members looked at the readouts from Hae-won's equipment, but the electromagnetic patterns showed no unusual activity. "Are you sure you saw it move?" asked So-young. Hyun-woo stared through his binoculars at the crystal being. Its face was peaceful and still, just like always. "I know what I saw." It turned its head. Just for a moment. Like it was looking at something. "Looking at what?" asked Woo-jin. Hyun-woo adjusted the focus on his binoculars and studied the sentinels' crystal face more carefully. For just a moment, he thought he saw something familiar in those smooth features, something that made his heart beat faster. I don't know, he said quietly, but I think it was looking at me. 1 year had passed since the first colonists arrived on Kepler 442b. New Busan City now housed 200,000 people. The settlement had grown beyond the original landing site. New districts spread across the southern plains. Factories hummed with activity. Schools were filled with children learning about their new world. Jin-Yu stood in her office reviewing the monthly reports. Food production was up 30%. The mining operations were finding useful metals in the nearby mountains. The medical center reported that people were healthier here than they had been on Earth. Everything was going perfectly. Administrator called her assistant Young Sik from the doorway. Commander Park is requesting permission to expand the northern survey operations. Jin-A looked up from her papers. What did he find now? More sentinels, ma'am. Dozens of them. They appeared. In the southern plains sometime last week? Jin-A felt a chill run down her spine. Appeared? You mean they moved there? No, ma'am. They just showed up. Like they grew out of the ground overnight. Hyunwoo was already at the new Sentinel site when Jin-A arrived by hovercar. The crystal beings stood in perfect rows across a wide grassland. Unlike the original Sentinels, these new ones were arranged in very precise patterns, geometric shapes that looked almost like writing. How many? Jin-A asked. 47 so far, Hyunwoo replied, not lowering his binoculars. And they're still appearing. We found 3 new ones this morning. Dr. So-Young Kim knelt beside one of the new Sentinels with her scanning equipment. The crystalline structure is identical to the original group, but these ones are different. They're newer. The crystallization process is still active. What does that mean? Jin-I asked. Wu Jin looked up from his readings. It means whatever creates these beings is still working, still making new sentinels, and it's getting faster. Haewon had set up her communication equipment nearby. The electromagnetic patterns are much stronger here. The new sentinels are definitely talking to the old ones, but the signals are more complex now, like they're sharing information. Hyunwoo continued studying the crystal beings through his binoculars. The new sentinels looked different from the original group. Their poses were more dynamic. Some had their arms stretched toward the sky. Others seemed to be pointing in specific directions. They're forming patterns, he said suddenly. Look at how they're positioned. It's not random. That evening, Hyunwoo's daughter Yu Jin came home from school with her art supplies. She was 16 now and had grown up on Kepler 442b. To her, the sentinels were as normal as the twin suns and purple sky. Dad, I need to finish my school project about the crystal people, she said. Can I borrow your survey maps? Hyunwoo spread the maps across the kitchen table. Yu-Jin had been drawing the sentinels for months as part of her art class. Her sketches showed the crystal beings from every angle, from the side, from the front, and even from above using drone photographs. Look at this, Dad, Yu-Jin said, pointing to one of her drawings. When you see them from up high, they make shapes, like the pictures in the stars that Grandfather used to show me. Hyunwoo looked at his daughter's artwork with new eyes. She was right. The sentinels weren't standing randomly. They were arranged, like constellations, star patterns that looked familiar. Yu-Jin, you're brilliant, he said, grabbing his communicator. Haewon, I need you to bring your star charts to my house right now. An hour later, Haewon spread her stellar maps across the table next to Yu-Jin's drawings. The comparison was incredible. The sentinels were arranged in perfect copies of star constellations, but not constellations from Kepler 442b's sky. These were patterns from Earth's night sky. This is the Big Dipper, Haewon said, pointing to a group of 7 sentinels. And that's Orion's belt. And here's the Southern Cross. But how is that possible? Asked Mi Young, who had been watching quietly. How would alien beings know about Earth's constellations? So Young arrived with more star charts and computer equipment. She overlaid Eugen's drawings with stellar maps from different time periods. The results were even more shocking. "These aren't just Earth constellations," she said, her voice trembling. "They're Earth constellations from different time periods. This group shows the stars as they appeared 1,000 years ago. This group shows them from 5,000 years ago. And this group shows them from 10,000 years ago." Hyunwoo stared at the evidence spread across his kitchen table. "The Sentinels aren't just copying our star patterns, they're showing us Earth's sky throughout history. But how could they know that?" Woo Jin had been quiet during the discussion. Now he spoke up with a theory that chilled everyone in the room. What if the Sentinels didn't learn about Earth's constellations? From us? What if they already knew? The next morning, the research team returned to both Sentinel sites with new equipment. They mapped every crystal being's exact position. They measured angles and distances. They recorded electromagnetic patterns from each group. The data confirmed their fears. The original Sentinels showed Earth's sky from 10,000 years ago. The new Sentinels showed more recent star positions, and they were getting more recent every day. "It's like they're counting down," Haewon said, "showing us Earth's history year by year, but counting down to what?" Hyunwoo stood at observation post 7 with his binoculars pressed to his eyes. The Sentinel he had watched for over a year stood unchanged in its eternal pose. But now he saw it differently. The crystal being wasn't just standing guard. It was marking time, keeping track of something important. As he studied the Sentinel's peaceful face, Hyunwoo noticed something new. The crystal structure was clearer today. The inner glow was brighter, and for just a moment he thought he could see details inside the crystal body. Shapes that looked almost like... "Oh no," he whispered, his hands shaking as he held the binoculars. "That can't be right." Through the crystal, he could see the shadow of something inside the Sentinel's body. Something that looked familiar. Something that looked human. 6 months later, the research vessel in Cheon arrived from Earth carrying a team of specialists. Dr. Yoonji Seo stepped off the transport shuttle with 20 crates of archaeological equipment. She was Earth's leading expert on ancient human artifacts, and she had come to solve the mystery of the Sentinels. "Commander Park," she said, shaking hands with Hyunwoo at the landing pad, "I've read all your reports. These crystal beings are the most interesting discovery in human history, but I think you've been looking at them the wrong way." "What do you mean?" asked Hyunwoo. "You've been studying them as aliens. But what if they're not alien at all? What if there's something much more impossible?" Yoonji set up her archaeological dig at the base of the oldest Sentinel in the original valley. Her team used careful brushes and precise instruments to remove dirt and rock that had built up around the crystal being's base over thousands of years. On the 3rd day of digging, they found the first artifact. It was a small bronze coin, green with age, buried deep in the soil. Yoonji cleaned it carefully and held it up to the light. "This is a Roman coin," she announced to the gathered researchers, "from about 2,000 years ago. But according to your geological surveys, this soil layer is 12,000 years old." "That's impossible," said Taemin Kang. "Humans didn't have space travel 2,000 years ago. They couldn't have brought Roman coins to this planet." "I know," said Yoonji, "but here it is." The digging continued. Each day brought new discoveries: medieval tools, pieces of pottery from ancient China, fragments of cloth that looked like they came from Viking ships. All of them buried impossibly deep in soil that was thousands of years older than they should be. Hyunwoo watched the excavation through his binoculars from observation post 7. The Sentinel stood motionless above the dig site, its crystal body glowing softly in the afternoon sun. He had been studying this particular being for over a year. He knew every detail of its surface by heart. But today, something was different. The crystal seemed clearer, the glow inside was brighter, and the shadow he had seen before was becoming more distinct. "So young," He called on his radio. "Can you bring your newest scanner to the observation post? I think I'm seeing something inside the Sentinel." When So Young arrived with her equipment, the readings were incredible. "Hyun-woo, there's definitely organic material inside the crystal structure. It's perfectly preserved, almost like it was frozen in time." "What kind of organic material?" So Young checked her scanner again. "Carbon-based, protein structures. It looks like a human body." That evening, Yoonji made her most shocking discovery yet. Buried 15 meters down, in soil that was definitely 12,000 years old, her team found a pristine object that should not exist. A NASA mission patch from the Apollo program, still bright and new-looking despite being buried for millennia. "This is impossible," said Woo Jin, staring at the patch. "The Apollo missions happened in the 1960s and 70s, but this was buried when humans were still using stone tools." Yoonji nodded grimly. "I've found similar things on 3 other worlds, ancient sites with modern human artifacts buried impossibly deep. Each time, the local government covered it up. They said it would cause panic." Hyun-woo examined the NASA patch with a magnifying glass. The details were perfect. The stitching was exactly right. Even the fabric felt correct. "How do you explain this?" "I have a theory," Yoonji said quietly. "But you're not going to like it. What if humans have been to these worlds before? What if we've been traveling through space much longer than our history books say?" Haewon had been working day and night to decode more of the electromagnetic signals from the Sentinels. Finally, she achieved a breakthrough. She burst into the research center where the team was examining the NASA patch. "I've translated part of the signal," she announced breathlessly. "It's not alien language, it's human speech. Very old human speech, compressed and slowed down by thousands of years." "What does it say?" asked Hyun-woo. Haewon played the translated signal through her speakers. The voice was faint and distorted, but the words were clear enough to understand. "Still waiting for home. Still hoping someone will come. Please remember us. Please remember what happened here." The room fell silent. Everyone stared at the speakers as if expecting to hear more. But the message repeated the same words over and over. "Who's speaking?" asked So Young. "I don't know," said Haewon. "But the voice patterns suggest it's human, very human." Hyun-woo felt a cold fear growing in his stomach. He thought about all the human artifacts buried around the Sentinels. He thought about the organic material inside the crystal bodies. He thought about the familiar poses and the human-like proportions of the crystal beings. "We need to scan all. The Sentinels," he said. "Every single one. I want to know what's inside them." The team worked through the night using every scanner and instrument they had. By morning, they had the results. Every Sentinel contained organic material, human organic material, perfectly preserved bodies frozen inside crystal shells. "It's like they're tombs," whispered Yoo Jin, who had been helping with the computer analysis. "Crystal tombs with people inside." But Yoonji had found something even more disturbing. In her deepest excavation, she had uncovered a metal plate with writing on it. The writing was in Korean, modern Korean, and it was dated just 5 years in the future. "Property of New Busan City Colonial Defense Department," she read aloud. "Issued to Commander Hyun-woo Park, year 2392. Hyun-woo stared at the metal plate with his own name on it. The date was 5 years from now, but the plate was buried in soil that was 12,000 years old. "This doesn't make sense," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Yes, it does," said Yoonji grimly. "It makes perfect sense if you accept one impossible fact. Those Sentinels aren't aliens. They're humans, future humans. Somehow they've been sent back in time. And if this pattern continues, in 5 years, one of those crystal tombs is going to contain you." Hyun-woo looked through his binoculars at the Sentinel standing in the valley below. The crystal being stood motionless in its eternal pose, but now he could see the truth. Inside the crystal body was the shadow of a human figure, a familiar figure. The creature just stood there, unmoving, and through his binoculars, Hyunwoo realized he was looking at his own future grave. The colony's most powerful observation equipment arrived on a cold morning 3 days after they found the metal plate with Hyunwoo's name. The new binoculars came from the orbital research station and could see details as small as a coin from 5 kilometers away. They were the best technology humanity had ever built. Hyunwoo carried the heavy equipment to Observation Post 7 with shaking hands. Dr. So Young and Dr. Yoon-ji walked beside him in silence. The three of them had not slept well since discovering the impossible artifacts buried around the Sentinels. Today they would learn the complete truth, no matter how terrible it might be. "Commander," said So Young quietly, "are you absolutely sure you want to do this? Once we see what's really inside those crystal bodies, we can never go back to not knowing." Hyunwoo set up the advanced binoculars on their mounting stand. His hands were steady now. After 18 months of watching the Sentinels, he had to know the truth. "I've been staring at these beings every day for over a year. Whatever they are, whoever they are, I need to understand." The morning air was perfectly still. The twin suns cast sharp shadows across Sentinel Valley. The crystal beings stood in their eternal poses, glowing softly in the early light. Everything looked exactly the same as it had yesterday and the day before that, and every day since the first human had set foot on this world. But today would be different. Today, they would finally see clearly. Hyunwoo positioned himself behind the powerful binoculars and aimed them at the sentinel he knew best, the tall crystal being with one hand raised toward the sky. For 18 months, this particular sentinel had been his constant companion during the long hours of observation. Beginning detailed examination of Sentinel-1 Alpha, he said into his voice recorder. "Distance, approximately 800 meters. Crystal structure appears clearer than previous observations." Through the advanced lenses, Hyunwoo could see incredible details that had been invisible before. The crystal surface had tiny patterns etched into it like fingerprints or tree rings. The inner glow pulsed with a steady rhythm that reminded him of a heartbeat. And deep inside the translucent body, shadows moved and shifted as he adjusted the focus. "The crystalline shell is definitely organic in nature," he reported. "But it's been formed around something else, something inside." Yoon-ji was setting up her own equipment nearby. "The geological scans show these beings have been here for over 10,000 years, but the crystallization process is still active, still growing, still preserving whatever is inside." Hyunwoo turned the focus knob slowly, zooming deeper into the crystal body. The shadows inside became clearer with each adjustment, more distinct, more recognizable. And then he saw the face. The binoculars slipped in his hands. He caught them quickly and looked again, certain he had made a mistake. But there was no mistake. Inside the crystal shell, perfectly preserved and peaceful, was a human face. His own face. "What do you see?" asked So Young, noticing his sudden stillness. Hyunwoo's voice came out as a whisper. "I see myself. I'm looking at my own face." So Young moved quickly to his side. "That's impossible. Let me look." She took control of the binoculars and spent several minutes examining the crystal being's face through the powerful lenses. When she finally stepped back, her skin was pale and her hands were trembling. "The bone structure is identical," she said. "Same facial proportions, same jawline, even the same small scar on the left cheek that Hyunwoo got as a child. But the face looks older, maybe 5 or 10 years older." Yoon-ji activated her ground-penetrating radar and aimed it at the base of the sentinel. "If there's a human body inside that crystal, my equipment will detect it." The radar results appeared on her computer screen within minutes. The images were clear and unmistakable. Inside the crystal shell was a complete human skeleton, perfectly preserved and in perfect condition. The bone structure matched Hyun-woo's medical records exactly. "It's definitely you," Yoonji said quietly. "But how is that possible? You're standing right here." Hyun-woo took control of the binoculars again and focused on the crystal figure's neck area. Through the clear crystal, he could see a small metal object hanging on a chain. A name tag exactly like the one he wore every day as Colonial Defense Chief. "So Young, can you read what that says?" So Young adjusted the focus carefully. "Park, HW Colonial Defense Department, service number 7749 Delta." Those were Hyun-woo's exact service details, the same numbers he had memorized years ago during his military training. "This is impossible," he said, stepping away from the binoculars. "I'm standing here alive. How can I also be dead inside that crystal?" Yoonji was already moving her radar equipment to scan other sentinels in the valley. "If one of them contains you, then maybe all of them contain people from our colony. Let me check the others." One by one, she scanned each crystal being in the valley. The results were consistent and terrifying. Every single sentinel contained a perfectly preserved human body. Men, women, children. All of them showed the bone structure and physical characteristics of people currently living in New Busan City. "This is Dr. Woo Jin," she said, pointing to one scan. "And this is Haiwan, and this smaller one. This is Yu Jin, your daughter." Hyun-woo felt sick to his stomach. "But Yu Jin is 18 years old and healthy. She's studying at the university right now. How can she be dead and crystallized in that sentinel?" "She's not dead," said So Young, studying the scanner readings. "Look at these energy patterns. The bodies inside the crystals are still alive, still functioning. The crystallization process has preserved them perfectly, but it hasn't killed them. Then what has it done to them?" Yoonji had found something else with her deep scanning equipment. 20 meters below the oldest sentinel, buried in solid rock, was a massive artificial structure. Something made of metal and crystal and energy that didn't match any known human or alien technology. "There's a machine down there," she announced. "It's enormous, and it's still running, still powered after thousands of years." "What kind of machine?" asked Hyun-woo. "I don't know yet, but it's connected to every sentinel in the valley. Energy flows from the machine to each crystal being. It's keeping them preserved, keeping them alive." So Young was studying the energy patterns on her own equipment. "This machine isn't just preserving them, it's also communicating with them. The electromagnetic signals Haewon detected are coming from this underground device." "But who built it?" asked Hyun-woo. Yoonji enhanced the radar image of the buried machine. Parts of it looked familiar. Control panels with writing in Korean and English. Computer interfaces that seemed advanced, but recognizably human in design. "We did," she said quietly. "This machine was built by humans. Advanced humans with technology we don't have yet. But definitely humans." The truth was beginning to form in Hyun-woo's mind like pieces of a terrible puzzle. The Sentinels aren't aliens. They're us, future versions of us. Somehow, our colony got sent back in time. But why are we crystallized? Why can't we move or speak? So Young had an answer that chilled them all. "Because you're not just sent back in time. You're trapped here. The crystallization process preserves you during the temporal journey, but it also locks you in place. You become living warnings to your past selves." Through the powerful binoculars, Hyun-woo took one final look at his crystallized future self. The peaceful face inside the crystals seemed to be sleeping. But the eyes were slightly open, as if watching, as if waiting for this exact moment. The creature just stood there, unmoving. But through his binoculars, Hyun-woo finally understood the devastating truth. The Sentinels weren't mysterious aliens from another world. They were the colonists themselves, sent back from a future that had already happened, trapped in crystal shells, waiting patiently for their past selves to discover the truth and learn from their mistakes. The most devastating part wasn't that. They were doomed to become the Sentinels. The most devastating part was that they had already succeeded in their mission. The warnings had been received. Now they had to figure out how to break the cycle before it was too late. The emergency council meeting filled the largest room in New Busan City's administrative building. Jin A.U. stood at the front facing 200 worried colonists. Word of the discovery had spread quickly. People were scared. They wanted answers. "The situation is this," Jin A announced. "In 5 years, our planet will experience a cosmic event, a temporal storm that creates time loops. Our future selves have sent us detailed evacuation plans. We have the coordinates for safe zones on the southern continent." Dr. Minho Choi, head of the Civilian Council, stood up. "Are we sure we can trust these messages? How do we know this isn't some kind of alien trick?" Hyunwoo stepped forward. "Because I've seen my own face inside that crystal. We've scanned every sentinel. They contain the preserved bodies of our future colonists. They're us. They're trying to save us." "But if we follow their plan," said Engineer Hyejin Park, "doesn't that mean we're accepting our fate? That we'll still become those crystal beings?" "Not necessarily," said Dr. So Young Kim. "The temporal device under the Sentinels shows us how the loop was created. If we understand the technology, maybe we can break the cycle." The debate went on for hours. Some colonists wanted to evacuate immediately. Others wanted to return to Earth. A few brave souls suggested staying to fight whatever was coming. Yoo-jin, now 18 and studying temporal physics at the Colony University, raised her hand. "May I say something?" Ginny nodded. "I've been studying the Sentinel positions with my art class. The patterns they form aren't just star maps. They're also evacuation routes, mathematical equations that show safe paths across the planet's surface. The future colonists weren't just sending warnings. They were drawing us a map to safety." Hyunwoo felt pride swell in his chest. His daughter had seen what the adults had missed. "Yoo-jin is right. The Sentinels have been guiding us all along. Every position, every pose, every formation. They're a survival manual written across the landscape." Dr. Yoon-ji had been studying the temporal device around the clock. "I think I've figured out how to break the loop. The machine creates a protective field during the temporal storm. But it also anchors the colonists to this time period. If we modify the field generators, we might be able to ride out the storm without being trapped." "How long do we have?" asked Jin-A. Haewon checked her latest message intercepts. "According to the future transmissions, exactly 4 years, 7 months, and 12 days. The storm hits at dawn on that date. The next months were filled with intense activity. Half the colony relocated to the southern safe zones following the coordinates provided by the Sentinels. The other half stayed in New Busan City to work on modifying the temporal device. Hyunwoo spent his days coordinating the evacuation and his evenings studying the Sentinels through his binoculars. Each crystal being had become familiar to him. He knew their stories now. The tall sentinel with raised arms was Dr. Woo Jin, pointing toward the medical evacuation route. The small sentinel looking toward the mountains was 12-year-old Soo Jin from the school district, showing the children's safe path. "They're heroes," he told me young one evening as they watched the sunset from their new home in the southern settlement. "Every single one of them gave up everything to make sure we would survive." Yoo-jin had become the colony's expert on sentinel patterns. Her artistic eye could decode the mathematical relationships that the scientists missed. "Dad, I found something new. The newest sentinels are forming a countdown pattern. They're showing us exactly when the temporal storm will hit. As the deadline approached, the two groups of colonists worked together. The southern settlement built the new temporal shields based on future technology designs. The northern team prepared to destroy the original time loop device. 3 days before the storm, Hyunwoo made his final visit to Observation Post 7. The sentinel that contained his future self stood unchanged in the valley below. Through his binoculars, he could see the crystal face clearly now. It looked peaceful, content. "Thank you," he said quietly to his future self. "I understand now. You didn't just save us from the storm. You showed us that humans never give up, even when facing impossible odds, even when the price is everything we have." The temporal storm arrived exactly on schedule. The sky turned purple and black. Lightning made of time itself struck the ground. Reality twisted and bent like water. But the colonists were ready. The modified temporal shields held perfectly. The safe zones protected everyone from the worst effects of the storm. And when the cosmic event passed, the colonists were still in their own time, still free. Hyunwoo stood in the ruins of the old Sentinel Valley after the storm. The crystal beings were gone. The temporal device was destroyed. The time loop was broken. "It worked," he said into his radio. "All colonists report safe. No casualties. The future changed." But something remained. In the exact spot where his future self had stood, Hyunwoo found a small crystal. Inside it was a message etched in Korean. "The loop is broken. Humanity endures. Live well." 5 years later, the colony celebrated Liberation Day. New Busan City had grown to 500,000 people. Children played in parks where the Sentinels once stood. The planet was truly theirs now. Hyunwoo, now retired from the colonial defense, taught history at the university. His favorite lesson was about the Sentinels and the time loop, about how humanity's greatest strength wasn't technology or weapons or clever plans. "Our greatest strength," he would tell his students, "is that we never abandon each other. Even across time itself, even when the cost is everything we are, the future versions of ourselves sacrificed their freedom to save ours. And when we faced the same choice, we chose to break the cycle. That's what makes us human." The creature had stood there, unmoving. Through his binoculars, the truth had been devastating, but it had also been humanity's greatest triumph. The loop was broken. The future was free. And on Kepler 442b, under the light of twin suns, human children played, and laughed and dreamed of the stars they would visit next. Humanity had not just survived. Humanity had won.